they're really trying to figure out how to get women to listen to them. It's funny. I like that part of it because they don't know how to talk to women. They're really trying to sow divisions and get people fighting with each other. And often this will be they're arguing against people, not about the substance of any issue. They're just trying to simply silence and shame and make people go away. So we can't go away, and we won't go away. And we're going to keep working on it at US Right to Know. And thank you. And thank you. Jeffrey's in the documents a lot, yeah. Definitely threatened by those who speak out and write books and give talks. But, you know, so much, I don't think you can hide the information. And I mentioned this earlier because, and women are buying most of the food. And so this is largely, when they're talking to consumers, they're trying to figure out how to talk to women. And they have not figured out how to do that. And I'm writing a report about all of these documents that will be available in a few months and kind of going through what I talked about today, which is the different strategies that they use, the manufacturing ignorance in science, rolling out the third parties, attacking scientists and journalists, all of the many ways, using examples from the Monsanto papers, examples from the bee research, and showing how their messaging to women is so insulting. And they're trying many, many ways to lift up female spokespeople. There's groups called Sci Moms and Sci Babe and Farm Babe, and all saying these same talking points from the pesticide industry. So it's an interesting just mix of, like I said, sort of the hellfire campaigns of disinformation that are, bottom line, as sophisticated, maybe even more, as all-pervasive, and definitely more successful at this point than the oil industry's climate science denial campaigns and what the tobacco industry did to hide evidence for 50 years about the harm of cigarettes. So I'm going to go back to this Prop 37 slide and tell one more story from the GMO labeling wars. There's a whole lot more stories to tell about that. But this was a good news story because those two lines, now the red line there, you see how the no campaign had no support, and then they shot past us. And we were enjoying 70% support that dropped like a rock as soon as they started advertising. Well, those lines actually crossed again in the last 10 days of the campaign, which are not shown on this Pepperdine poll graph. They crossed again. We actually won on election day. But because in California there's mail-in voting, and many people vote early, we lost too many votes in the early voting that we couldn't overcome. So even though we had more votes on election day with people who went to the polls, we lost. And so what was it that made the difference? Well, this is a good news and a bad news story, because what made the difference is we had the money to advertise on TV in the last 10 days of the campaign. We spent $9 million on one 30-second ad. So the reason that's bad news, I mean, TV ads are incredibly effective in political campaigns. Why is that? Why are people making really important political decisions based on what they see on TV? Somehow, like breaking through that propaganda hold that many of us have, and voters in California have. I heard one statistic during that campaign that 40% of their people were making decisions based solely on what they saw on TV about the ballot initiatives. So that's something to think about, is how do we do media literacy campaign training, media literacy training for young people, for ourselves, to sort of deconstruct the power that media has over us. The good news part of this campaign is our ad worked, our numbers went up, we won on election day. And so the one 30-second ad, that was a really controversial decision as to what was this ad going to be. And we had many ads that were running online. We had celebrity ads, we had anti-pesticide ads, we had Monsanto is evil ads. talking about the history of that company, which is quite dastardly, with DDT and Agent Orange. And we had an ad that a woman named Danny Tillman came up with the idea. And Danny was an African-American woman in LA who I interviewed to work in the media department. She unfortunately didn't take the job. But she said to me during this interview, "Your website just does not speak to me. It does not speak to my community. You've got all these pictures of food. I want to see people. I want to see people eating food. I want to see mouths. I want to see life. Food is life. Food is love, baby." And I was like tingles when she said that, and I thought about it all weekend, and I thought, food is love. Food is how the women in my family showed love. It's how my grandmother showed us all, bringing all of us to her home on Sundays. It was my mother feeding 5 kids every day. How she did that, now that I have 1 kid, I don't know. But food was love at the deepest level of my family. I thought, that is a beautiful ad idea. So I was watching Mad Men at the time, and I came up with this pitch of like, we need an ad. Food is love. I told it to Gary, and he was like, that sounds good, but you have to convince Eric, the ad guy. So I go to Eric, and I do the whole pitch, and he says, okay, yeah, we need a positive ad to send to B-roll. So basically, we were creating all these ads that ran online only. And then when it came time to do the 130-second ad, we hired a firm to do what they call dial testing. So they showed 7 different ads to hundreds of people who had dials, and they turned them according to their emotional reaction to the ads at every moment. So they have an emotion meter basically for every moment of the ad. And then the idea is we take the strongest messages and we put them together into one message. Well, they came back with this data, and they said one ad blew away every single other ad in every single category. It's not even a discussion, this is our ad. And it was Food is Love. And it was a beautiful, hopeful imagery of women feeding food to their families and talking about the concept of love. And so that is, to me, was the most important lesson of that campaign. First of all, women in leadership is extremely important. And when these companies and their PR firms that are led by men trying to message to women, it's painful because they're not seeing how to connect with people in real terms about the most important thing in our lives, food. But somebody did recognize that this was a good ad idea because somebody stole it, and that was Monsanto had a Food is Love ad campaign. So that cracks me up because they spent $100 million just defeating 4 state ballot initiatives. They had the best polling and the best minds in the world trying to figure out how to influence people on GMOs, and in the end, they just stole our idea. And they had business cards, and they had a whole online thing for a while. So food is love. But my takeaway from all of this information today is that one person can make a big difference, that shining light on what these companies are doing makes a big difference, that they're worried about even a teenager. They're worried about even one tweet. And that just shows a system that is incredibly not resilient, that cannot stand up against hundreds and millions of us around the world speaking out about what they're doing, shining light on what they're doing, telling the truth, and saying the solutions. Growing healthy, real food for people and not for corporate profits. The food industry is changing. The GMO labeling campaigns, even though we lost them, had a major impact on the food industry. Their trade association busted up, broke apart. I love these headlines. Food CEOs are rushing for the exits. And the last one in the Wall Street Journal, food companies can't figure out what Americans want to eat. They can't figure out how to monetize what Americans want to eat. Because what people want, what all the surveys and polls are showing, and what the numbers show, because here's the organic sales, people want fresh, healthy, organic foods that they know where it came from, they know how it was grown. And that's a trend that I do believe is unstoppable. And what's interesting about these figures too, and they come from the Organic Trade Association, is that they also say in their numbers that the fastest growing segment of people choosing organic foods are millennial moms. And only 20% of them, millennials, have had children yet. 80% still to come in a demographic that is preferring organic food greater than any other demographic that came before them. So the food industry is changing, and all of you here are helping to change it by the work that you do in your own communities. So we just need to double down, speak out louder, push it harder, say what's happening, and not shut up. So that's our plan at usrtk.org. You can find all our information there. Sign up for our list. You can find the Monsanto papers there. And we have a right to know, and once we know, we have a duty to act. So thank you all for everything that you're doing every day to create the food system our kids deserve.